3 years ago, I graduated and started working as a SOC analyst. And a lot has changed since then. For example, I still work in cybersecurity, but I am no longer a SOC analyst. So far, I think I've progressed through my career pretty quickly and have gained experience in areas sooner than most people would. Starting out in this field, I had a lot of expectations that were challenged, and I'd like to reflect on some things that I've learned after working in this industry as a young professional. Everyone's journey into cybersecurity is going to be different, but I hope that these 4 reflections from my career thus far help you on your journey. Number 1 is burnout. Burnout in this industry is real. At least for me it was. I personally started to feel burnout after about 1 year working in the SOC. Now, to be fair, that's partially because I knew going into this that I wasn't really interested in the SOC. It was more of a stepping stone to get me to where I wanted to go, which was governance, risk, and compliance, and that's what I work in now. SOC analyst is one of the most common entry-level roles in cybersecurity, so there's a good chance that if you're trying to get into this field, you might end up as a SOC analyst. And so I want to say that the amount of excitement, for lack of a better term, in the SOC is going to depend and vary for every SOC out there. It depends on the organization you're in, how many resources that organization has, what industry you're in. And so you could have a SOC that is really busy, or you could have a SOC that's really quiet all the time. It depends. At least in my experience, working in the SOC can be really fast-paced, where you're constantly dealing with new alerts or new vulnerabilities coming out left and right, and it can really start to feel like you're drinking from a fire hose. Alert fatigue is also real. Sometimes you'll see the same things over and over again, or you'll see the same user constantly falling for the same thing over and over again. And there's going to be that Friday afternoon where someone reports their laptop stolen or loses it somewhere where they shouldn't have been with their laptop in the first place, and then you're going to be left to deal with it. Ask me how I know. For me, I think burnout was accelerated because I was originally hired as a junior incident response analyst supporting a more senior incident response analyst who was trying to integrate the incident response program into the overall SOC. That coworker ended up training me for about 3 months before they left for a temporary work assignment that ended up being permanent. So I essentially went from being a junior incident responder to leading the incident response program and integrating it into the SOC. All in about 6 months. And that's not to brag, that's just to say that I had to learn a lot of things really quickly and became the POC of an entire program really quickly. And so that accelerated my burnout and ultimately led to why I transitioned out of the SOC after about 1.5 years. On the flip side of that, working in the SOC can be a really rewarding job. SOC analysts are the first line of defense in protecting the organization from cybersecurity threats, and so the impact of your work can oftentimes be seen in real time. Preventing an attack, investigating cybersecurity events, and returning systems to good known state can feel really cool. But don't go all hacker man on me, because it's not like that in most cases. But it can feel pretty exhilarating when you get really deep into an investigation and then you realize that you were the one that helped stop a threat. You just have to learn what excites you and avoid overwhelming yourself too quickly. AKA, don't try to run an incident response program 6 months after graduation. But that leads me to the importance of work-life balance. I think this is something that people really undervalue in cybersecurity and the tech industry in general. I've always been a proponent of life-work balance over work-life balance because I think life should come first. Cybersecurity is a job, just like anything else, and your career doesn't have to be your life. I remember when I was first getting into this, there were so many people talking about how you have to live, drink, and breathe cybersecurity every day, all day to have success in this industry. That if you're going to be working a 40-hour week, you better be putting in 10 hours every day after work, or else you're going to be stuck in help desk. And don't get me wrong, this field moves fast and there's a lot of things that you got to keep up with. And of course, putting in extra time and being passionate about your job is going to naturally help you in accomplishing that more quickly, but your life outside of work doesn't need to revolve around your career. In other words, you can have a successful career in cybersecurity and still clock out at the end of the day. I think we generally spend so much time figuring out what we're passionate about and then trying to make that into a career, but I think it's also worth normalizing not being passionate about your job. I think you should enjoy what you do and at the very least not mind it, because if you're going to spend 8 hours a day doing something, it would be better if you didn't hate it. But I think this idea that you have to be passionate about it and you have to absolutely love cybersecurity over everything else is just not realistic for most people. Most of us pursue a career in order to enable a lifestyle, and I think that's perfectly fine. And the thing is, if you fail to make those boundaries, you may start to feel the effects of burnout more quickly and even start to resent the job that you spent so much time trying to get into. I've really tried implementing this over the last 3 years, and I think it's made me more effective in my job and happier overall. And so I think the earlier in your career that you realize this, the further you'll be able to push off the effects of burnout and prevent waning interest in your job over time. Number 3 is that it won't always live up to the hype. Social media has glamorized working in cybersecurity and tech. The vast majority of you are not going to be sipping a martini on the beach while working in cybersecurity on your laptop. Sorry to burst your bubble. I remember that I made a video on TikTok about my day in the life as a cybersecurity specialist working in GRC. By the way, if you're not following me on TikTok, you definitely should, or at least follow me here, or both, why not? But I remember getting a comment saying that I made cybersecurity seem boring in that video. And that's probably because I try my best to make realistic day-in-the-life videos, and cybersecurity isn't always glamorous. Especially GRC. GRC is not the sexy side of cybersecurity, though I find it quite sexy, so.
You weird, buddy.
Even when I was working in the SOC, there were days where things were uneventful. Maybe I was working on an SOP or writing up a lessons learned, or I was in meetings all day, back to back to back to back, for 8 hours straight all day long. I will say that since switching to GRC, things are a lot more calm in comparison, but I personally really like that about my job. I like being able to predict what I'm going to be doing every day. For me, getting a new security alert is a trigger for PTSD, not something I'm excited about. Like I said, cybersecurity is just another job, and there's moments that are going to be super exciting, depending on what you find super exciting. And there's going to be moments that are boring, stressful, or draining, and that's to be expected. But yeah, don't let these social media influencers make you think that this job is something that it's not. It can be hard, there's a lot of work that needs to be done that they are definitely not showing on camera. And I am, to an extent, included in that. There's some things that I can't show you because of the nature of my job. So just take what you see online with a grain of salt. Number 4, imposter syndrome is normal. Imposter syndrome is a common thing on the minds of professionals of every level. But now having some experience under the belt, I can say that feeling like an imposter is unfortunately just part of the journey. Imposter syndrome thrives on the belief that everyone else around you is more competent, knowledgeable, or skilled, and it makes you feel like you're the problem. And I think this gets compounded by the sheer amount of information out there that there is to learn. Cybersecurity is a big field that moves quickly with so many different things that you could do and new things coming out basically every day that it makes it impossible for you to know everything. Especially in those entry-level roles, you don't need to know everything, and they're not expecting you to know everything. They're just expecting you to know the basics and have a willingness to learn, and then you'll pick up everything else that you need to through experience. Even now, I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on security operations and certain elements of GRC, but if you ask me to rack some network equipment, I'm gonna look at you like you're crazy. And that's okay. One thing that's really helped me with imposter syndrome is finding a support system. Whether that be a friend, a colleague, a mentor, or an online community, having someone else in the industry can help remind you that you're not an imposter and that you're doing just fine on your own path. Just remember that all you can try is your best, and that feeling like an imposter is just part of the journey. Also, I said I only had 4 reflections, but I have a bonus one for you. The size of the industry. When I first came into cybersecurity, I had no idea how big this field actually is. I think that most people trying to get into this, they think either pen tester, SOC analyst, security engineer, and that's kind of like the extent of it. But after working in security, there's just so much more that you can do. Like, yeah, you could go down the route and be a SOC analyst or be a penetration tester. That's perfectly fine. But there's also governance, risk, and compliance. There's identity access management. There's DevSecOps. You can focus on privacy. You can go into network security or computer architecture. And there's so many little subsections within that there's like an infinite amount of things that you can do. And that contributes in a way to that feeling of, oh my God, there's so many things that you need to know and you need to know everything. But like I said, you do not need to know everything. Just use it as reassurance that regardless of what you're into, there's probably a spot for you in security. But I hope these reflections help somebody out there who's trying to get into cybersecurity. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below and I'll try my best to answer them. Oof, and my light going out is a sign to end this video. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.